Okay guys, it's finally here, my scoring video. So I've been wanting to do this, obviously. I've talked about it several times, especially when I upload my next prep vlog. You'll hear me mention the scoring video, the scoring video, the scoring video. So let me just get right to it. Let's talk about how fitness is scored. And sorry about this angle. I normally would put it right here, but there's people behind me on the Stairmaster, and I just don't feel like strangers would appreciate being in my video. So when it comes to scoring, and this is for specifically for fitness. Now, in general, a lot of the things are the same, but some things are different for fitness. So what is across the board? How does scoring work? Everybody goes and they are ranked, okay? So every judge will give you a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, whatever rank that they believe that you are, right? So each person has a collection of numbers given to them by the judges. Then out of those, let's say there's 5 judges, the high and the low are dropped, okay? So then there's 5 judges, high, low are dropped. They add these 3 together. That is the score that we see on the scorecard when we look at them on IFBBpro.com. So everybody gets their totals. The lowest number is the first place person. The highest number is the last place person. So the lower your score is, the higher you rank, right? Because 1 is the lowest number that they can give, but it's the highest rank that they can give. So when you're looking at scorecards, trying to figure out what do these numbers mean, that's where those numbers come from. Those numbers are totals of they're the sum of the middle judges. Okay, like I said, high and low are dropped. Now at the Olympia, there are 9 judges, and the 2 high and the 2 low are dropped. And I think at some other bigger shows, maybe there's 7 judges and the high and low are dropped. So most times you'll see these really jumping in increments of 3. The first place person has a 3, next person has a 6, 9, 12. In some cases, you'll see it jump in increments of 5. Like I said, that's when you have bigger panels. However, there are times where you won't see it in exact increments. Example, let's say there's someone who gets 3 first place votes and 2 second place votes, right? So I'm a judge looking at you, and I think you're in first place, but a couple of the other judges think you're in second place. And then the second place person has the opposite. They have 3 second place and 2 first place. Well, when you drop the high and low, that means that one of those people is going to have a 4, and one of them is going to have a 5. It's not going to be exactly 3 and 6 because it wasn't unanimous across the judging panel. Now, if it were 4 judges gave you a 1 and 1 judge gave you a 2, and then the opposite for the next person, 4 judges gave you a 2 and 1 person gave you a 1, those would be dropped. So it would look on the scorecard as if it were a unanimous vote, because the 2 would get dropped from that first place person and the 1 would get dropped from that second place person. So when we look at the scorecard, we would see 3 and 6. So the scorecard doesn't actually always tell the full story. It just tells what the median, basically, judges thought. It's also important to note that that is dropped per competitor, not per judge, okay? So it's not like, I don't know how to explain it. Sometimes I was talking to people about how scores add up. It will not always equal exactly, if there's 5 competitors, it won't always equal 1 first place vote, 1 second place vote, 1 third place vote, 1 fourth place vote, and 1 fifth place vote. Because depending on if those votes were unanimous or not, maybe every single first place vote got dropped from those people's scores. And then I'm going to get into the spreadsheet as soon as I mention this one thing, just talking about that. If you look at the Fitness Legion Sports Fest scorecard, I'll put it right here. Okay, you will see that Taylor in the routine round got 6. That means she was a unanimous first place. But if you look at Kristen, who got second place in the routine round, she didn't get 12. She got 18, which I'm going to talk about. That really means she got 9, which means that if you look at Kristen's score, my score, Kayla's score, you can tell that there was not a unanimous decision about who was second place. Because if you look at just the numbers, it looks like there is no second place because there is no 12, right? The second best score is an 18, which based on what we consistently see on score sheets, 18 is like normally what the third place person would get. And so that basically just means that the judges all had such varying rankings that once they dropped high and low, it's like it looks like nobody got a second place rank. So anyway, I'm gonna get out my spreadsheet, I'm gonna voice over, I'm just gonna run through some examples of how this works. And hopefully by the end of it, you guys will have, a better understanding of at least how to read a scorecard and and I'm not going to get super far into this, I'm going to really more talk about this on my Olympia wrap up, but how to prioritize and how to make proper predictions and assumptions about how people are going to rank, because I'm not going to go super far into it on this video, I'm going to get into it on my Olympia wrap up, but I see a lot of people saying, oh, so-and-so should have ranked higher, so-and-so should have ranked higher, and I'm like, if you understood how scoring works, how statistics work, how the math of the spreadsheet works, you would have known that that person wasn't going to rank higher, was going to rank higher, was going to rank lower, all of those things. In fitness, we have to remember that the routine round is 2/3 of our score. So I think a lot of people look at physiques and then they say, you know, oh, so-and-so should be in the top, so-and-so should be in the bottom. How can you rank so high with such a low physique? When the reality is that the way that the scorecard works, and we all know the scorecard works, the questions should be, how can you rank so high with such a low routine, right? People let their hearts and emotions put emphasis on the physique, but at the end of the day, the way that the scorecard reads, the emphasis should and is on the routine. So when you're trying to make predictions, you have to understand that routine is king. And when you look at results and you're like, oh, so-and-so shouldn't have ranked so high, or so-and-so should have ranked higher, you have to remember that more of the score is based on routine, so you have to lean on how did the routines look. That dictates who should rank higher and who should rank lower. Okay, so enough of that. I'm gonna get on my spreadsheet. We're gonna walk through some scenarios together. This is essentially, I've never seen it because I'm not a tabulator, but this is essentially what happens when they're scoring and inputting scores, tabulating scores, getting ranks, okay? So these are the judges. So I'm just saying I wrote pre and finals just so we know, like, this is what they ranked in that particular round, but this is just judge 1, judge 2, judge 3, judge 4, judge 5. Same thing on the other side, judge 1 through 5, okay? What I did was put some formulas. So this will add up my judges. I've never done this on my phone like this. I normally do this on my iPad. So excuse me if this like looks weird. Okay, right? So if 3 judges gave that person a 1, their prejudging score is 3. Now, what I did not do in this spreadsheet is even count these. We're just going to assume, for the sake of this particular thing, that judge 4 and judge 5 are always the high and low judges. We're just going to assume that that's how it is. I was not about to make a bunch of formulas to like find the high, drop the high, find the low, drop the low. It's too much. So let's just assume judge 4 and judge 5 are always the high judge and always the low judge. If it's unanimous scoring, it doesn't really matter, but as you can see, I added ones to those totals. It's still a 3, okay? Then let's say this person, same thing, gets 1s across the board. Let me move this. There we go. Gets 1s across the board on the routine round. Again, for the purposes of this video, we're gonna say judge 4 and judge 5 are the high-low that always get dropped, so their scores don't count. So in finals, this person got a 3, right? But in finals, here's the first thing that's specific to fitness. It is 2 times. If you look at that formula, which I don't know how much y'all know about Excel and formulas, but basically it is whatever the total is, it is multiplied by 2. Okay, so that is very important to note, because when people say 2/3, sometimes they think, now in this case it is exactly divisible, but a lot of people think, okay, so I should divide this by 3, and basically this number should be 1/3 of it and this number should be 2/3 of it. But that's not exactly how it is. Let's say this person got 3rd place in their routine round, and I'm fixing those numbers right now. Let's say this person got 3rd place in their routine round. Again, I don't even know why I'm messing with these numbers, because this column doesn't actually count. Okay, if I divide 21 by 3, that is 7. So that would mean 1/3 of that would be here and 2/3 of that would be here. It would be 7 here and 14 here. That's not how it works. What it actually is, so even though we say it's 2/3 of the score, it's weighted by 2/3, meaning we multiply this one by 1 and we multiply this one by 2 and we total them together to get this number. Okay, so just so you know, your finals score will not always, honestly, it will rarely be exactly divisible by 3, and then, you know, you put 1/3 of it here and 2/3 of it here. That's just not how it works unless you get the same exact ranking in both prejudging and finals. Okay, so I am just going to go down, give you some hypothetical rankings, right? And in fitness, again, we have to remember, I'm not entering anything for 4 and 5 right now because I'm just not going to do it. I don't have time for that. In fitness, like I said, it is weighted towards the routine round. So let's say these are the rankings for prejudging. Competitor A gets first, second, third, fourth, you know, we see all that. However, in finals, let's go opposite, actually. So in finals, this person had an amazing physique, but their routine was straight garbage. Okay, no offense, I don't think a lot of fitness girls do garbage routines, but let's just say it just wasn't, it was not it. So for the first time in history, the finals rankings are exactly opposite of the prejudging rankings. Okay, now let's look at these totals, y'all. Look what happened to the rankings, the total rankings, the total numbers. Look at the rankings. The rankings go from bottom to top. This person got dead last in physique, but they won the whole show. Why? Because they smoked routine, and here's where you have to strategize, and here's what you have to understand. So many people would look at these people and be like, wow, they look amazing. How come they're not winning? And they look at these people and they say, oh my gosh, they looked horrible. They were second and third call out. How are they winning? I will tell you how they're winning, because of math. This is how math works. We multiplied their finals ranking by 2. When you multiply it 10, 10, 20, 30 by 2, now you're adding 60 points to your score. Whereas this person only got 30 points added to their score by getting last place in physique. And they only added 6 points to their score. Do you guys see, like, mathematically how that works out? So I have talked about on my vlog about how when the show is small enough, routine or physique like barely even matters. The smaller the show, the less the physique matters. And I'll show you why. Okay, so I mean, in that case that I just showed you, obviously everything went completely opposite. The first place physique got last place in routine. The last place physique got first in routine. And sometimes things like that do happen. However, it doesn't happen often. But let's say these are still our physique rankings right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. This person wins routine, right? Great, fantastic. They weren't super sharp physique-wise, but they smoked routine. But let's see what happens if this first place physique, they were still pretty good, but they weren't insane. Like, last place physique smoked everybody. First place physique was still pretty good, just not amazing. Now, in this case, that first place physique still wins. That is fantastic for that person. But what happens if that person gets third? Let's say it happens like this. I'm just putting in scenarios. I don't know how these are gonna like total or anything. We're just like going through some scenarios together, right? What happens now? Oh, well, don't look at this person because I didn't put a score for them. Let me put a score for them. Fourth place. This person was at the bottom, kind of at the bottom of both. Okay, now let's look at our totals. We have a tie right here. This person got second and second in both rounds. This person got last in one round and first in the other. They ended up being a tie. If you saw Legion Sports Fest, that's what happened. That's basically what happened, actually. Not in this specific magnitude, but that's basically what happened. Kristen Pope got second in both rounds, And then she tied with someone, with Taylor, who got low in the physique round, but smoked the routine round. They ended up tying, and in fitness, ties break to the routine. Whoever won routine out of the two people tying wins the show. So this person would win. And this person who won the physique round, people would look at this person, generally people would look at this person and say, oh my gosh, how come you didn't win? I'll tell you why they didn't win. Because they got beat by too many people in the part of the routine, in the part of the scorecard that matters the most. Okay? So what happens all the time in fitness is you see, actually, hold on, let me pause this. So what happens a lot in fitness is you see a lot of people focusing really hard on their physique, as you should, right? You should focus hard on everything. But what I've noticed as a competitor is that people prioritize their physique. They don't prioritize their routine. And even as spectators and fans, we look at physiques and determine who we think should be ranked higher, right? So I'm gonna run through a couple other scenarios on my spreadsheet that don't have anything to do with what I just said, actually. But just a couple more scenarios of how, again, you can look at some scorecards and see, like, understand what was happening on the panel, but also understand that you can't always determine what actually happened on the panel based on what you see on the scorecard. And like I said, I'm going to show that next. Thing that you will see on scorecards that will tell you that it wasn't unanimous scoring, okay? So if you ever see a total, now like I said, you know, most panels you'll see the scores jump by 3s, some you'll see the scores jump by 5s, other times it won't be exact increments, or there will generally be 3s and 5s, but there will be some random 1-point differences and 2-point differences, etc. So let's say in prejudging, this person, and we're only going to talk about just one part of the scorecard. It doesn't really matter. I'm not going to do it for the entire scorecard. Let's say this person, got 2 1s, 2 2s, and a 3. Like, one judge just straight up did not really love this person. This person, that judge that, oops, I didn't mean to do that. That judge that gave the first person first place gave this person second place. But then they gave this person, now we have a 3, here we have a 1, and here we have a 1. Now, my totals are messed up again because my formula is only adding these 3 columns. My formula is not exactly dropping the high and the low, but if you look at this, just this part, this person would have this score dropped, and they would have this score dropped. This person would have this score dropped, and this score dropped. Now, look at what happens. This person would get a total of 5. This person would also get a total of 5. So one thing that people don't understand is sometimes when you see ties on the score sheet, it's not because the judges looked at a pair of competitors and said, across the board, they came to a consensus and said, yes, we all like these 2 competitors equally. They didn't all tie the 2 competitors for whatever rank that they got. What happened, or what's more likely that happened, is that each judge kind of had a different order for the competitors, and then once highs and lows were dropped, the scores that were kept ended up adding up to the same number. This is also how large gaps are created, where we're having, again, how these 2 competitors have the same scores dropped. They each dropped a 1, they each dropped a 3, and what was left was the same exact numbers. Sometimes what would happen is, let's say, I don't really have an example like off the top of my head, but let's just say like this person had another 3 instead of another 2, and then like the next competitor got that judge's 2. Well, now this person has a 6, so they got second place, but barely, right? So anyway, that's another way you can read these scorecards, is when you see totals that don't exactly skip like exact increments. That is how you can understand. Now, unfortunately, the IFBB does not share this entire spread, right? We don't know how many judges gave you a 1, how many judges gave you a 2, which judge gave you a 3. All we see is what it adds up to. But again, if you're like me and you are a numbers person and you are a spreadsheet person, you can sometimes figure it out, right? Okay, so I feel like there was something else I wanted to mention, but I can't think of it right now. I'm like on the treadmill walking. I can't think of it right now. So when I go back to edit this video, I'm gonna watch it and see if while I'm watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, you meant to talk about this. If that's the case, I'll add it in. If it's not the case, this is the end of this video. But yeah, hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. So especially if you're someone who watches my vlog where I talk about scoring a lot, it'll make more sense. Or if you watch, again, the Olympia, and I'm not going to talk about it a lot right now because it's going to go in my Olympia wrap-up, but I know a lot of people were shocked about the Olympia final rankings. And honestly, you guys, I spent hours on the math on that. They shake out correctly. The original scorecard posted didn't drop the highs and lows, and actually that is something I want to address on this one. The original scorecard did not drop the highs and lows, so a lot of the gaps were very confusing, right? There was a 1 point gap between first and second place, which, while I think that there was a 1 point gap between first and second, and there was like a 12 point gap between second and third. And while I think that first, second, and third were correct, the 1 point gap was very shocking to me. I was like, I don't think it was that close. I think it's the right order, but I definitely don't think it was that close. And I don't think that second and third were that far apart. But then once they corrected it and dropped the highs and the lows that skewed some of those scores, it made more sense. There was a much larger gap between first and second and a much smaller gap between second and third. So anyway, all that to say, I hope this makes sense. Like I said, in fitness specifically, routine is 2/3. And I know a lot of people have said they think that it should be 50-50, and that's fine. I think that would make sense. However, it's not 50-50. It is 2/3. So again, when we are trying to prioritize our own seasons, or when we're looking at the outcome of shows, or when we're trying to make predictions for shows, if you watched my prediction video, you saw exactly how I made predictions. I didn't make predictions based on who I just thought was better. I made predictions based on, this is how I think physique will go, this is how I think routine will go, and I let the scorecard spit out what that would mean for the final order. I didn't just say, I think this will be the final order because that's what I think. I think this person's going to get second place because I just think they're the second place person. I said, no, this person looks like they're going to get second place based on how I think their routine and their physique will rank, right? And so that's a big part of fitness that I think a lot of people really miss and they don't understand, is that you have to mathematically think about how these routines are weighted compared to physiques. Like I said, a lot of people think it should be 50-50. I could get behind that after my next Olympia, but it's not 50-50. It's 1/3, 2/3. And so hopefully this video helps break that down for you guys. If you guys have any questions, or maybe you have specific shows you didn't understand the scorecard on, and you would like for me to do a breakdown of that show, I can do that. Again, I will say, because the full point spread is not published, a lot of these things are me just guessing mathematically, okay, this person got a 4 in first place. That means there were probably, 2 judges that gave them a first place and 1 judge that gave them a second place. That adds up to 4. But I don't know that for a fact, right? I can't, the way that there's so many different possibilities, especially the longer the lineup gets, of who could have ranked where, how many judges gave them a 2, and a 3 and a 4. And like, I mean, again, I spent hours on this after region trying to figure out like how the gap got created between first place and second place in routine round. And there were literally hundreds of possible outcomes. So again, I can break it down for what I think it could have been, and I did do that for the Olympia. So when you watch my Olympia wrap up, you can check it out there. But I can at least show you how you could try to understand, not based on your feelings, because that's another thing about bodybuilding. And now I'm just getting into a tangent, and this will really be the end. People in bodybuilding, I think because it's so subjective, like to base how they think things should have gone on their feelings. It's like in football, you either scored the points or you didn't score the points, got the touchdown, or you didn't get the touchdown. No one would say, well, I like that team better, so I know that their points were lower, but I think they should have won. What? No, that's not how it works. You don't just get to say you think someone should have won, even though the scorecard clearly says that they should not have won. Now, you do get to have your opinion of whether you think the points given to them, the ranking given to them was correct, right? I think this person's routine was better than how it ranked. Therefore, if it would have ranked as high as I personally think that routine was, then they would have ranked higher, right? Like, I can say, I think that person's physique was better than 4th place. Therefore, I think their final outcome was lower than it is. But if I know that someone's physique was ranked 4th and their routine was ranked 4th, then I don't get to say, oh, I just think that person should have gotten 2nd. Like, that's not how it works. Like I said, I do get to say, I think they had a 2nd place physique and a 2nd place routine, so I think they should have gotten 2nd. But knowing if someone got 4th and 4th or whatever, we have to understand that the scorecards, the numbers are the numbers. Like, the judging is subjective, but the scoring is not. So anyway, hope y'all enjoyed that. I hope it was helpful. Now I'll go back and watch my Olympia predictions. If you're someone who watched them and then I said, hey, pause this and go watch my scorecard video, now go back to that prediction video and watch that, and my Olympia wrap up will probably be up in a couple days.